Hello, I'm on quarantine, you're on quarantine, so we should do something together, well, while maintaining virtually socially distant. Let's build a paint rack. Admit it, you've always wanted one of these, and all you need to build it is a chunk of wood, even scrap wood, some screws, and a little time. And one thing we all have right now is time. Every wood shop and makerspace has a lot of paint cans laying around because, let's face it, we never use it all up when we make projects, do we? You use part of it, then you stick it on a shelf. And you use part of this one, you stick it on another shelf. And you end up with these cans all over the place.
He hates these cans!
What you need is a paint rack. And we're going to build a paint rack to hold these 48 cans of spray paint that are here in our shop. Wait, you're saying? You've already got a paint rack. I've seen it in your videos. In fact, you're seeing it in this video. It's right here. It's our old paint rack and it holds 48 cans. But it's got a couple problems. It doesn't measure exactly where we need it. It's hanging too low. A few other things. We wanted to build a new one to better work with our fold-out paint booth over here. This one we're going to take and put in the other garage to hold non-wood shop stuff, because why would you have non-wood shop things in your wood shop? You don't want yard stuff in here. I mean, come on. This is where we do woodwork. So, new paint rack. And the other one will have a home next door. So nobody loses and we get a new paint rack.
First thing you're going to need is a board 4 to 6 inches wide. Length doesn't really matter because you're going to be chopping it up. So scraps that don't match each other are perfectly fine here. All you really have to do is make sure your board is warp free and generally straight and you'll be good to go. Next is to set the miter saw to 16 inches. You don't have to use a miter saw, we just happen to have one. 16 inches will hold 6 cans of paint horizontally. If you want more, add 2.75 inches for each new can you want. I'm cutting 9 shelves here because we want 8 shelves to hold paint plus a topper at the top of the rack. And it's just as easy as it looks. This is the majority of the rack already built. We only have 2 more pieces of wood to cut. Then I just sand off the edges to take off the rough parts to make it look nice. But it's not finished carpentry, so you don't really have to go overboard. And now all of these pieces are ready for the next step.
Alright, so we've got our 9 shelves here stacked up and ready to go. We're going to use pocket screws to hold these together because pocket screws are amazing. They allow you to build things very rapidly with very little effort. You can use a rig like this. This is a basic pocket screw rig that you can clamp onto the wood and drill your hole, or you can get the K4 jig like I have here. I've put some wings on mine made out of wood, so this is really a K4.5 rig if you think about it, but this allows us to move very quickly. And it's attached to our dust collection system that automatically comes on whenever I run the drill. But what if I don't have a Craig jig like this really cool Craig jig or these other things? What if I don't do pocket screws? No problem. You can take these sideboards and you can drill your screws right through the wood, just like that. It doesn't matter. So Craig jig, pocket screw thing, or screws through the wood, either way, just put a screw into the shelf and you're good to go. All right, let's go.
The Craig jig allows me to put a lot of pocket holes in a lot of pieces of wood very rapidly. I'm putting 4 pocket holes in each one of the 9 boards for a total of 36 holes. The Craig jig is attached to the shop vac, that orange hose you see there. It is so effective at removing sawdust that it looks like I'm not doing anything at all. But in reality, a pretty good bit of sawdust is going down that hose into the dust extractor on the shop vac. I've set the miter saw for 30 degrees because we want to tilt the paint cans at 30 degrees. You don't have to do this. You can make it 90 degrees and just keep it straight and it will work just fine. Next, I set the miter saw for 33.5 inches to cut the left and right rails that will support the 9 shelves. The basic rule of thumb here is I need 4 inches per shelf. That's because they're tilted at 30 degrees. So 4 inches times 8 is 32 inches. That's the 8 shelves. And then we have a topper shelf, which is also canted, so I add 1.5 inches to that, giving me a grand total of 33.5 inches for an 8 shelf paint rack. If I wanted to add more shelves, all I would need to do is add 4 inches to each rail for each additional shelf, and I could hold as many cans as I wanted. But since we're limited to a little less than 36 inches in our shop, we kept it to 8 shelves, and that holds 48 cans, so that's a lot of paint. And we're satisfied with that capacity in the shop. So just remember, 4 inches per shelf plus 1.5 inches for the topper, and you're good to go. And just like I did on the 9 shelves, I sand the edges to take off the sharp edges and any splinters that may be sticking out. Because when you're ready to paint, you don't want to have to deal with splinters getting in your fingers. Because at the point you're adding paint, you should be well past the whole sand the wood down and get rid of the splinters phase. This next step is key. I took 2 pieces of 2x4 and cut them down to a 2.75 inch width. We'll use these as spacers between shelves as we build.
So instead of measuring each shelf and drawing a line on it and going through all that and trying to work out all the angles and everything, we can just use these blocks, and these blocks will do that for us. Put one shelf on, put the 2 blocks on, put the other shelf on. Our measurements are exact, it's perfectly square, everything works. This is a really good way to use a piece of wood as a jig, so you don't have to worry about doing all that math and making mistakes. I can't mess this up. It's always going to be this distance between the shelves. They're always going to be completely square because these are square. And it's just a 2x4 I chopped up to make it work. So use stuff like this to speed up what you're doing. And you'll see how fast it makes me when you see me use this in just a second.
Construction is simple. I screw the first shelf in place, holding it down with a clamp to keep it from wandering when the pocket screws go in. And then I use the jigs to separate the shelves as I move down the rails. Those 2 pieces of plywood, make sure that each shelf is exactly the same distance apart. Our measurements are going to be perfect, and I'm not even using a tape measure here, because those 2 jigs I made out of scrap metal do all the work for us.
Now we're going to paint it orange, because we don't want our workshop to be boring.
We like to paint some of our access pieces in the shop orange because it looks nice, it's a happy color, and it's my daughter's favorite color. It's also the color of the X-Wing suit that I wear with the Rebel Legion when I go and visit hospitals, so it has significance to us. If you're going to be spending a lot of time in your wood shop, I highly recommend adding some bright colors. It really makes it nicer out there. And the paint can hide errors if you have any. We tend to have a lot, so we like paint.
The next day.
The new paint rack is complete and it's time to hang it up. I put 2 screws at the top of this cabinet that the edge of the top shelf will hook onto. They're just to support the weight while I hang it. They won't hold the weight for real, but they'll hold the rack in place while I put the other screws in. I'm measuring to make sure that these 2 screws are at the extreme left and right corners of the paint rack because I don't want them to collide with any paint cans that go in. And there's all kinds of ways to hang something like this, but since we're going to be able to screw from behind, these 2 screws to hold it in place are just what we need. Look at there, it hangs perfectly, it's level and everything. It's almost like I knew what I was doing. And now with those 2 screws holding the rack where I want it, I can run some screws in from behind it, using the cabinet wall to hold the rack in place. You might mount yours differently, this is the way that worked for us.
See, that wasn't so hard, and now we've got a paint rack that'll hold 48 cans right here out of the way, right next to our paint booth. So when we use the paint booth, we just reach over here and grab the cans. I know it's just like the one we had before, but it's narrower, it's better built, and it'll fit the cans better, and it's higher up than the other one was, so this saw will be able to slide in easier. So an improvement. And the other one's on its way to the other garage. So let's go ahead and load our 48 cans of paint. Okay, upon counting, it's 47 cans of paint, so we've got room to grow. But look at that, they're all up here and out of the way. You gotta have one of these. These are great to have in your shop. They look great, they store all your stuff. You can immediately see what you have. If you're on your way to the hardware store, you can see what you got before you head out the door to buy new stuff. Or not buy new stuff because you found it in the rack and can use it. So there it is, our brand new 48 can paint rack that replaces our old 48 can paint rack, which is on its way to the garage to hold non-wood shop things. It's kind of heavy. You can build stuff like this. It will greatly enhance the life of your shop, and if you put it next to your paint area, like our paint booth here, it's right where you need it. You store your stuff at the point of use. Wonderful to have. Recommend that you build stuff like this for your shop. It may not be exciting to go show off your friends and everything, but it'll make you work faster in the shop because your tools will be where you need them and you won't lose them as often like I always do. Thanks to our patrons for helping us Thanks for financing what we're doing. This was a simple one, but there are other heavier projects that we're doing that you're helping us with. We love you, and please keep giving us your comments, and your support really means a lot to us. If you like what you see here, like and subscribe, share the videos, all those things. Look at our other videos, and tell us what you think on those as well. We always want to hear what you say. Lots more coming up, and we'll see you next time.